is our weekly series live 5:30 a.m. every single Tuesday right here. And it's so great to have you here. It's so great to have you part of this journey. This journey is for the entrepreneur, the person's got a passion for business, curiosity for business, love for business. And whether you're the business owner or the manager or just starting out in business, or maybe you're a student, maybe it's school, prepping for your morning this morning, and but you just love entrepreneurship and you're thinking about owning your own business. That's what our channel does. Our entire brand, I'm a business consultant, speak into the life of entrepreneurs with basic nuggets. We've got various channels that we offer. We've got the wisdom series, we've got the off the cuff series, we've got a podcast channel, we've got webinars, workshops, a live webinar coming up this Friday, actually, about how to launch your own business. So 30 minutes tops, that's what we promise. Join our newsletter. If you've no idea what I'm talking about, just comment news or DMAS news, and we'd love to share that with you. But other than that, welcome to Wisdom Live. And today we're going to talk about the weight of your words. So there's something fascinating about language across every culture, every civilization, every business I've ever walked into. Words are doing something, not just communicating, something deeper. They are building or they are dismantling. And the terrifying thing is that most of the time we don't know which one we are actually doing. And I want to start this morning with a question. Think of one sentence someone said to you that you still carry. Just one. Maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a manager, maybe it was a mentor, maybe it was someone who actually hurt you. You can probably hear it. And I don't want you to relive that moment, and especially when we talked about offense just a couple of weeks ago, but I want to give a practical example, right? You can hear that and right now in their voice, almost word for word. And that is exactly the weight of words. They don't just land and disappear. The right word in the right moment from the right person can shape the next 10 years of someone's life. And so can the wrong one. This morning, I want to talk about speech, not as a communication skill, although I think that's most probably the thing that we get the most requests on LinkedIn. So not on as a communication skill, but also not as a presentation technique, not as a leadership competency that you rate yourself on a 5-point scale. I want to talk about speech the way that Solomon talks about it, as a moral instrument, as something with weight, something you will be held accountable for. Because Solomon, 3,000 years before the performance review was invented, already knew something we have largely forgotten. Words are not decorative. Words are structural. They build cultures before any strategy document does. They shape trust before any value statement does. They form character in the person listening before any training program does. And if you are leading anything, you are speaking into something fragile all the time, every time. And this morning, I want to give you a framework for that weight. 3 things your words are doing right now inside your business, whether you are paying attention or not. But first, the text. And we need to look at the text. Now, I want to read you something from Proverbs 18, verse 21. It says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits." If you read that, you'll notice something cool. Solomon does not say words are powerful. We always requote him and say, that's what he said. He says they carry death or life. That is not a metaphor about communication style. That is a statement about the weight of the instrument. The tongue, in Solomon's worldview, is a tool with a moral consequence, not a neutral mechanism for conveying information, a tool that creates and destroys. And then notice the second half of that verse, right? Those who love it will eat its fruits. Solomon is not just talking about impact on others. He's talking about formation of the speaker, the person who is careless with their tongue eats carelessness. The person who is constructive with their tongue eats construction. You are shaped by how your tongue speaks. This is a deeper point than most leadership books want to make. Now, if we look at Proverbs 12, verse 18, it says that there's one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. And yet again, I want you to notice that the contrast here is not between bad words and good words, it's between rash and wise. Solomon's concern is not the content of speech alone, it is the character behind it. Rash words come from an unconsidered self, right? Wise words come from a formed one. The business application is always uncomfortable. How many meetings in your company right now are full of rash words dressed in professional language? How many performance conversations are sword thrusts delivered in a calm tone? Solomon is not talking about aggression. He's talking about the formation. One more passage that I want to read. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Solomon is not praising eloquence. He's praising timing. The Hebrew is almost architectural, words that fit the moment like a key fits a lock. The gold is the word and the silver is the setting. The setting is the moment. Most of us have the gold. We have thoughts worth saying, but we speak without considering the setting, right? Let me take a sip of water in that moment. And that leads to a certain result. Gold scattered in the wrong container. 3 texts that we looked at, 3 angles, death and life in the tongue, rash versus wise, word fitly spoken. And that is the vocab we are working with exactly this morning. So, because there is a version of good speech in business, that is a counterfeit. I've been in many organizations. I've sat in many leadership teams. I've listened to many founders talk to their people, and I've noticed a pattern. There are leaders who are excellent communicators, polished, articulate, compelling, and the people inside their organizations do not feel seen. They do not feel told the truth. They feel managed. And that is the counterfeit. Performance speech. It sounds like communication. It looks like leadership language. It uses all the right words: alignment, transparency, culture, vision, values. And it produces almost nothing, because performance speech is designed to manage perception, and wisdom speech is designed to serve the listener. And those are 2 different goals, completely different goals, right? So we need to look at the positive only communicator. And there's a type of leader who has discovered that positive communication is safer. Every difficult conversation becomes, I want to share some feedback with you in a growth-oriented way. Every personal concern becomes, let's look at this as a development opportunity. Every fundamental problem in the organization becomes, we're on a journey. And notice what has happened. The words are technically affirming, but the information has been removed. The team member needed to hear, if this pattern continues, this position won't work. But they received, I'm so glad we're having this conversation. And they walk out of the meeting confused, or worse, actually relieved, when they should definitely not be relieved. And that is not kind speech. I've said it so many times. I've written podcasts and content and blogs about the moral person, like humble. Be humble. It's perfect, but don't think humility is the same as being, I don't know, I can't even remember the word today, like this, right? That's not kind speech. That's cowardly speech. And Solomon has a word for it, right? In Proverbs 27, verse 6, he says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Solomon is not saying harshness is the virtue. He is saying that real care sometimes produces a wound, and false care produces kisses. The kisses feel better in the room, the wound serves the person. And there's the other counterfeit, the harshness dressed as honesty, right? There is another counterfeit on the other side, the leader who confuses harshness with honesty. I've watched founders who believe that being difficult proves they take things seriously. The sharp email, the dismissive reply, the public correction that could have been private, the tone in the room that communicates, I am impressed. And they believe this is strength. But actually, Solomon, when we look at applying this biblical wisdom in our day to day, in our businesses, is actually very clear. In Proverbs 15, verse 4, it says, a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perseverance in it breaks the spirit. It breaks the spirit. Solomon is not soft, he is precise, right? A broken spirit is not a short-term morale problem. It is a structural damage to the person, to the team, to the organization. So we have two counterfeits: performance speech, positive managed cowardly, or the harsh speech, direct, careless, and destructive. And between them, the narrow path Solomon is describing, wise speech, faithful, fitly spoken, healing. But how do you build that? What is the architecture in from this weight of the words look like into your business, into your daily life? Because we need to bring us to the architecture. If wise speech is a building, what holds it up? I want to give you 3 load-bearing walls. All 3 appear in Proverbs. All 3 are recoverable in your business actually this week already. The first wall is clarity. We've said it so many times that we need to be more clear as leaders, founders, and entrepreneurs about the goal, the mission, the words, the journey, everything. Clarity is clear. Clarity is clear. Clarity is important. The first wall is clarity. Wise speech is clear. Not simple, it's clear. And there's a difference. Simple speech removes complexity. Clear speech removes ambiguity. Proverbs 10 verse 19, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. Solomon is not saying talk less because communication is dangerous. He is saying that volume often hides a lack of clarity. The leader who talks the most in the room is often the one least sure of what they are actually saying. Clarity is not a gift. Sorry. Clarity is discipline. Right, after your next team meeting, ask yourself, does every person in that room know exactly what they are responsible for and by when? Is that very clear? That's a basic tip you can ask yourself to strength test that first wall. If the answer is maybe, the speech was too many words and not enough clarity. Right? Clarity also means being honest about what is hard. I was working with a founder last year, mid-sized business, cash pressure, team beginning to sense it, the usual journey of an entrepreneur, I guess. Apologies. He called a company meeting, delivered a 30-minute visional speech, did not mention the pressure once. The team left feeling confused, not because they, didn't know what the vision was, because they had walked in knowing something was wrong and walked out knowing the leader wasn't going to name it. And the cost of that meeting was not 30 minutes. It was a material portion of the trust he had built over 3 years. Right? So Proverbs 24 verse 26 again, whoever gives an honest answer kisses the lips. An honest answer is an act of intimacy, an act of respect. So clarity is the first wall, but what's wall number 2? Wall number 2 is consistency. Wise speech is consistent over time. This is the one that most leaders underestimate because you do not build culture in a single town hall. You do not form a team in a single difficult conversation. You do not earn the right to be heard in one great speech. You earn it sentence by sentence, week after week, in the corridors, in the one-on-ones, in the messages at 11 p.m., in the tone of the email when the quarter actually went wrong. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has cool spirit is a man of understanding. Cool spirit. Not someone who never feels the pressure, but someone who register does not change depending on the weather. The team is watching this. What consistency builds? It builds a pattern. And a pattern becomes culture, right? That what we allow is culture that gets repeated as a culture. The phrases that repeat inside your organization, that becomes the belief system of your organization. And there's a couple of recurring phrases. I've watched leaders whose default phrase in a hard week is "we're behind," right? We've seen it everywhere. After 18 months, the team has internalized we are always behind. The belief is structural. The phrase has been, doing work. I've watched leaders whose default phrase in a hard week is "let's figure this out." Different culture, same pressure, different vocab. What gets said repeatedly becomes what gets believed. And this is not a communication strategy. That's not one of those things like if you put it out in the universe and if you say it, it will come true. It's formation. Check the recurring phrases in your business. I'm not talking about your words of the day, but phrases that often get thrown around, right? Check out for those. Not the ones in your value documents, not the ones that actually appear in meetings, in corridors, in the chat channels. What are they teaching people? Because they are teaching people something. Consistency is the second wall. And now the third wall, courage. Wise speech requires courage. This is the one we avoid because the courageous word, is the one that costs actually something. Just want to look at the time there. The feedback you give anyway, the no you say clearly, the concern you name in the room, the apology you offer first, the truth you speak when silence would be easier. Proverbs 28 verse 23 says, "Whoever rebukes a person will afterward find more favor than one who flatters with the tongue." The author, Solomon, is not saying the courageous word feels better in the moment. He is saying it produces better fruit over time. The leader who will tell the truth is the leader the team eventually trusts. The courageous apology is a story that it's one of my favorite. One of, the most courageous speech acts a leader can make is the apology. I've watched leaders who cannot apologize. They will correct, they will explain, they will contextualize, they will even acknowledge that something went wrong. But they will not say, "I was wrong," especially not to a subordinate, especially not in front of a team. And the team knows it. And the team adjusts exactly that accordingly. They learn that leadership here is defended, not accountable. They stop bringing the hard things. They start managing upward. They become politicians in a company that needed practitioners. So there's clarity, consistency, and courage. And that is the architecture, right? So in the final moment, I want to leave you with this. Your words are not just communication. Your words are formation. And I want to say that again. Your words are not just communication. Your words are formation. Every word you speak inside your organization is slowly forming what people believe about the work, about the leader, about themselves. And this is not a responsibility you can opt out of. That is the weight of leadership, right? Because there's this kind of thing about Solomon. He wrote more about the tongue than almost any other topic in Proverbs. He wrote about the rash word and the healing word, the fitly spoken word and the profuse flattery, the honest answer and the fool speech. He built an entire library on the weight of language. But then something happened. By the end of 1 Kings, the man who wrote that death and life are in the power of the tongue was building altars for foreign gods to satisfy the words of his foreign wives. Yet again, notice something right there. Solomon was not undone by someone else's words. He was undone by the words he kept listening to. 1 Kings 13 verse 3 to 4 says, he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. And his wives led his heart astray. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after God's. Turned his heart. Not by argument, although I'd never want to be in the position to argue with 700 wives, but not by argument, not by debate, not by a single dramatic moment, by the slow accumulation of words spoken in proximity over decades. The wisest man in the world did not control the environment of his listening, and it undid him. Right? So, this is the part of the speech on words that nobody wants to stay for. Because we, like the outgoing version of this teaching, the part where we are responsible for the words we speak into others, we like that. We can see it. We can measure it. We can work on it. Right? The harder part is the incoming. You are also being formed by the words you listen to, by the podcasters you have on while you drive, by Snapchat and TikTok and LinkedIn and all the things that you've got open to, the pages that you follow, the interest media that you get into, you shape by that. By the group chat with the founders who spend most of the time complaining, by the advisor who always tells you what you want to hear, by the internal voice that speaks to you about who you are and what you deserve. And Solomon, in his wisdom, managed the outgoing. He failed to manage the incoming. And the result? The kingdom split after his death. His son inherited the full cost of the drift. Generationally, information does not equal formation. You can understand the weight of words and still fail to live by it. Right. We're ready to close this. The New Testament has a word for this. It's called paideia, often translated as discipline, but its root meaning is the formation of a child. You don't do wise speech, you become a person who speaks wisely. Through repetition, through honesty in small things before the big ones, through 1,000 small choices to say the harder true thing instead of the easier, comfortable thing. The tongue is trained before the moment arrives. If you wait for the moment, it's already too late. 3 things your words are building inside your business right now, whether you intended them to do or not. What people believe about the work, how they believe the leader sees them, what they believe is expected of them. These are not outcomes of your strategy document. These are outcomes of your speech patterns. So I'm going to leave you with 3 reflective questions that you can ask and sit with this week. There will be additional resources in the newsletter. So if you're not part of our newsletter, please join that. Links are everywhere available on our bios and everything, or just DM message, comment on this afterwards, or during, we'll see it. And we'll send you the link to our newsletter, a couple of cool stuff that will contain the resources for wisdom, the off-the-cuff questions, some cool things that's happening in AI and how to implement that in your business, and everything that we're busy working on. So you can join that newsletter or just follow along in this journey. But I want to leave you with exactly the 3 questions to sit with this week. The first question is, where in my communication has performance replaced honesty? Is there a conversation I'm softening when I should be straightening? A concern I'm managing instead of naming, a relationship in my team where I've not been honest because the honesty is hard? The second question, what phrases are running in my organization that I put there? What do people say when the quarter is hard? What do they say about customers, about each other, about the work? Where did they learn to say that? They learned it from you, from the phrases that ran through the meetings, from the tone in the corridor, from what you said when things went wrong. The third question that I want you to reflect on yourself and ask yourself, is there a courageous word I've been avoiding? The apology that is overdue, the feedback that was needed 3 months ago, the honest conversation that would cost you something in the room, but give the other person something they needed. And what is that word? And why haven't you said it? Solomon's thesis in all 31 chapters of Proverbs It's not that wisdom is knowing the right things. His thesis is that wisdom shapes the life you actually live, not the one you understand, the one you inhabit. And you inhabit your words every day in the meeting room, in the one on one, in the message you send at 9 p.m. when you are frustrated. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Not mostly death, not mostly life, in the power of the tongue, in yours. So speak with weight, not perfectly, not without failure, but with intention, with honesty, with the courage to say the thing that costs you because it serves someone else. That is the leader your team needs, not the articulate one, not the positive one, not the one who never says the wrong thing, the one who speaks with weight, with honesty, and with care, the one whose words are consistent enough to be trusted, clear enough to be followed, courageous enough to be believed. And wise leadership turns the weight of words into the architecture of something that lasts. See you next Tuesday. Thank you for joining.